First question, have you seen any AI demos this week? We are in our liquid processing area at tank 1. We have a temperature of 34 something. Is it hot or is it cold? My flow rate is 0. Is that expected? Is that unexpected? If it's unexpected, is that a failure? We just don't know. It's because no matter how hard you try to be successful with this data, you only are going to have one feeling in the end, and that feeling is simple frustration. The data coming across the UNS in almost all UNSs that we encounter is not data that you are ready to make a decision on.
So I'm going to go back to the UNS. What do you think the AI is going to do when it sees a 0 pack size and it's going to try and figure out how much did you produce for the day?
Data must be systematically transformed by well-defined rules and processes. The good news is, this is an architecture issue. And architecture issues, once we solve, we create holistic solutions that affect every part of this process.
I've created a schema definition for this. So each and every metric that we publish back to the UNS is going to have this defined schema. Do I need to read the rest of this report? No, I'm done. I can go on and do my job because there is nothing for me to worry about.
Your data holds the answers, but scattered across dozens of systems, you can't align it with the right context to trust it enough to act on it. But what if every data source spoke the same language? What if you had one trusted source of truth? Flow Software is on a mission to empower your operations with confident decisions by building easy-to-use tools that connect your critical systems into one governed platform. Timebase captures all your time series data free and clear of license restrictions, making it so easy for you to reliably store the data you need. Infohub transforms your historians, SCADA, MES, and other databases into contextualized events, KPIs, and insights your team can actually use. Your engineers get trusted data, your operations gets clear insights, your business gets streams of context-rich information. With these tools working together, Flow Software creates the foundation AI depends on: clean history, governed logic, shared context, so your models learn from reality, not noise, and your AI delivers answers you can trust. Flow Software, better data, better decisions.
You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. My name's Jeff Knepper. I'm joined by my business partner and lately, I think, brother in arms, Lenny Smit. And I cannot thank you enough for giving us a little bit of your time. Before we jump in, though, let's flash back to the high school freshman, sophomore year. You come in late for class, and the teacher says, pop quiz. Let's do a pop quiz. First question, have you seen any AI demos this week? Number 1, number 2, what are you gonna pick? The answer, please. Trick question, it was number 3. Next question, do you think this is going to be an AI demo? Do you know me? I like C. Of course it's not going to be an AI demo. Why would we do an AI demo in 2026 at ProveIt? And question number 3, they do get progressively harder. For your best chance to win with AI, the data you provide needs to be full of meaning, structured and consistent, aligned with operational time, provide a trustworthy history. You can only select all of them if you want a good AI result. Now, that quiz is just for fun, but something quite serious from a friend of mine that wrote a book that if you don't have, you should, Manufacturing AI. Ryan Hill, in his book, writes, even the most powerful AI solutions are only as useful as the data they consume. If you're going to get an AI-related tattoo in the next couple days, I suggest that phrase, because it is right on and true. So what then do we need to be providing our AI if we believe in that mission statement? We have to start thinking about data that already has shape and boundaries being at the core of the AI foundation. We need to make sure that our domain knowledge is stated, it's not implied. We have to have the right slice of information, not all of the information, and a reliable memory of what actually happened. Store values that are rich with context. Those are the things that an AI solution requires if we're going to trust it. So, your challenge, if you choose to accept it, is to pretend that you're no longer the person that you are. Instead, you are a data scientist for Enterprise B. Enterprise B is a multi-site bottling operation. And as a data scientist, you've been told there's a UNS. This UNS is going to help you in preparing data for the applications engineers. That's your job. So let's evaluate a section of one of these plants as a data scientist. We are in our liquid processing area at tank 1. Let's start by evaluating our first point. We have a temperature of 34 something. Is it hot or is it cold? Where are my Europeans? And Canadians and everywhere except here for the most part, I get it. But to be fair to a Canadian, their definition of hot and cold is far different than mine, even if we're in the same unit of measure. No, you don't know, do you? Let's do the next one. What total duration should I be anticipating? Look, there is context here. I can see that I have a state. My state name is running. I'm actively in that state I'm running. My duration is 10. Let's assume I understand units of measure here. What is the ideal duration for this state? We don't know. Let's look at another one. Someone has calculated a metric for me. I have availability. Where's that system that holds that calculation? What's it come from? Better question, what calculation are they even using to get there? And we're not done, we have one left. Let's look at our flow rate. Again, I'm running, I have that context. My flow rate is 0, is that expected? Is that unexpected? If it's unexpected, is that a failure? We just don't know. We don't know if things are normal, if things are executing exactly like they're supposed to. Why is that? It's real simple. It's because no matter how hard you try to be successful with this data, you only are going to have one feeling in the end, and that feeling is simple frustration. And if it's your job to take that data and build an application that engineers are going to rely on, that key decision makers are going to use, or that is going to empower AI, you're going to have AI frustration as well. Simply put, the data coming across the UNS in almost all UNSs that we encounter is not data that you are ready to make a decision on. But as you can probably figure, there's good news. We're not going to leave it there. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to start by simply declaring something that I think we can all agree on. Data must be systematically transformed by well-defined rules and processes. I don't think anyone is going to argue against that fact. So then I have to ask myself the question of, if that is true, where am I going to do it? Am I going to ask the data scientist? Am I going to ask the enterprise application engineer to pick a lot of data points out of the cloud and make sense out of them? Or am I going to push this process as close to the edge as I can get it so that my OT knowledge, my process engineering expertise, all of that tribal knowledge becomes wrapped into this data? That's my where. And then finally, it's the how. If I'm going to push it to the edge, if I'm going to get that knowledge transcribed into it, then now I need to think about how I'm going to do it so that I have governance, so that I have scalability, and I can version all of these things as top priorities. Now, we know where we're going to do it, we know how we're going to do it, and that tells me that I'm guessing if you're not executing this perfectly, you probably have a few pain points that you're feeling. I know that Enterprise B is feeling these pain points. Engineers get numbers back from centralized systems. They find those numbers not to be trustworthy. AI initiatives get stalled out. There's not enough context. Business logic gets duplicated and duplicated and duplicated and scattered across scripts and store procedures and applications. You don't have that single place for collaboration, review, and governance. Every time you expand a use case, you're in the middle of rework. And then finally, no matter where you go or what you try to get for history, someone else might go somewhere else and get something else. So if these are the pain points, then that means that we have to try to ask ourselves what is actually going on. We could think of it as framing up our problem early. The good news is this is an architecture issue. In architecture issues, once we solve, we create holistic solutions that affect every part of this process. This holistic solution that we're going to propose today, the problem that we chose to solve for Enterprise B, formalize a process for turning that raw data into trusted information that's trusted, visible, governed, repeatable, localized, and collaborative. If it's an architectural issue, then we have to create a clear foundation. That foundation takes all of our OT data sources, sits right on top of those siloed systems, and then serves information to our site-based decision makers, our site-based applications, and our site-based AI initiatives. Simultaneously, it also serves that information to our enterprise-based applications, our enterprise-based AI initiatives, and our enterprise decision makers. So if you think of it as an architecture, take your existing UNS. We don't want to disturb the architecture you've already started to work with. We know the UNS is extremely, extremely good at moving that real-time data. But what about all of the historical data sources? What about a centralized place, an Infohub, for all of these calculations, these data conditions, these event detections, these aggregations of data, our business rules? Where do they all live, execute, and get stored? If we do this at site, push to the edge, and centralize the work, now I feed two different things. I feed the UNS a much better payload, rich with context, meaning, and I feed that history to my applications. I make history available to my applications, and I use the UNS to help enable that. We're excited to show you how. So, Lenny, we need a process for this. 4 steps. Our 4-step transformation pipeline. We persist it.
Jeff.
We improve it.
Jeff.
We model it.
Can we maybe not have 4 steps? And I don't think that's an appropriate acronym.
I can't hear you, I'm so sorry.
I don't think that's an appropriate acronym, Jeff.
Okay, we persist it, we improve it, we store it, and we share.
Jeff, can we please just get a 3 acronym for our steps, please?
What are you thinking?
I think we should just call it, we persist it, we improve it, and we publish it.
Okay, let's do that. We're gonna persist it, we're gonna improve it, we're gonna publish it. 3 steps are better than 4. We're gonna use 2 of our applications to do this. We're gonna use a 3rd application to demonstrate that we've done it and that it works for you. So we're gonna start in reverse order in the demo, but foundationally, that data has to get stored. We did not inherit a historian in this scenario. So we brought in Timebase. Timebase is our gift to you. It's a historian, NoSQL backend, highly performant, lossless compression. So we're up to 1 million tags on a single license install, 150,000 changes per second, trending tool, security, OPC, MQTT, Spark plug, data loggers, an ignition module for 8.3.1 and 2, an ignition module for 8.3.3, telegraph connectivity, API. You can literally go to timebase.com, download it and go. We support Windows and containers. There are no license fees, there are no caps. We will never come and ask you for money. Take the historian and go store your data, please. Please. If you're not storing everything that you need to store at the plant, you no longer have that problem. With Timebase or with any other historian in place, and all of your other data systems, your inventory systems, maintenance, your quality systems, your business systems, will use Infohub to have access to that data, hold all of the models, all of the rules, all of your executions. Our engines will actually process all of that data, store it, and then publish it to the UNS, and then publish it also to your applications. Lenny's going to then use AI Gateway to show you what it looks like when we have that type of information. We're not going to show you a prompt window. We're not going to be chatting with it. We did that 9 months ago. Instead, we're going to show you how to execute AI in a way that is repeatable, fast, and useful. And with that, Lenny, why don't you get us started?
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. All right, so I'm going to take it from the result, and I'm going to kind of work backwards on how I get to the end result. So I'm going to go back to the UNS. And as Jeff mentioned, we are working with Enterprise B being that multi-site enterprise. And you'll notice that we've created we're pushing to our flow topic for the sites. And I've created metrics for my liquid processing, my packaging, and my filling production. Now, if I expand this for the filling lines, we've created decision-ready metrics that now has the context for you to make those informed decisions. So let's have a look at that. I've created one for all my throughput counters, and I've already slicing it per hourly information. Every hour, every shift, every day, what is the total throughput that these filling machines are delivering? Now, let's look at the outfeed of one of those machines, and let's look at the total production for the hour on hour. Now you'll notice that I've created I've created a schema definition for this. So each and every metric that we publish back to the UNS is going to have this defined schema. The profile is available on our GitHub repo for this, and it gives us a lot of metadata on top of that information. All right, so what can I see here? I can see what is its units of measure. I can see what is the description. Oh, this is a cumulative sum or total of the count coming out of that filling machine. So you guys can see a little bit of domain knowledge is now getting built into the model, and we'll expand on that domain knowledge the further we go down this path. I can see it's hourly, so I know every hour I'm creating my totals. I can see where in the hierarchy of the organization or in the site does this live. I can see what format is applied. But the coolest thing for me is that I actually have an endpoint, an API endpoint that gets published with the schema that will tell me actually how do I get the history for the past X amount of hours of this data. So it's not just the real-time value that I've got access to in the UNS, it's also giving me that capability now to go down into the historical data for that.
Can I stop you there, Lenny?
Yes.
So if I'm an applications engineer and I'm now browsing the UNS to see what I have, I see someone has made a KPI for me down at the plant. They've encoded it with what they know about the process. I've got it. You're telling me that that endpoint tells me where I can now hit to ask for the last 30 days of that KPI, or
Correct.
As long as it's stored.
Correct.
And it's part of the payload in the UNS. Okay? What's the other piece there?
The other piece is we're not only slicing the data with time, we're also slicing the data with other pieces of context. Think about the work orders that you're running on that line. Think about the state of the machine. So now I've got attributed values on top of those time slices, and I also have an endpoint to hit to not only get me the hourly data, but also get me the context against which work order and which state that machine was in. So both of those two endpoints, part of that profile that we publish back to the UNS. Perfect. I'm going to go through the rest a little bit quickly. So obviously we give you the time period for the past hour. I can see it was on my production calendar, and it was part of the morning shift. And then we get to the value part, right? But important, The values are also now enriched with more context. And one very important piece of context is what is the quality? So how do I score that this KPI is actually good quality from the historian? We look at the OPC quality codes within that historian. And I'll show you guys later when I build my reports how the AI can interpret that to tell me, do I actually have a problem, yes or no? All right, I've got my values. I've also got my values per state. Very important, so I'm slicing it per state. And what this is telling me is that I'm actually wasting or I'm making product while I'm busy cleaning the machine.
Explain the state for me a little bit.
So we track the state of the machine as it goes through the process. So it will go into a startup state, it will go through a cleaning state, it will go through a CIP state, it will go into a production state. Those states have different durations. We use those durations to slice the hour. So you'll notice that's not the full time duration for the hour. We say for a period of the hour, you were in CIP mode, and then we go and work out what was the total count for that particular state. And we do it for everything. We do it for the states, we do it for the work orders, we do it for the item class. So all of that data is now sliced per that additional metadata. And we provide that obviously through that as well. Now, very quickly, if I copy one of the endpoints, so if I copy this endpoint that we create for the data, I can go and hit it up in Postman. So I've got my Postman here. I can hit that up. So let's quickly look at the history here. Let's hit that, and let's look at the body. And there we go. I've got the same data now available for other applications, not just the UNS. So we're talking about delivering the same amount of data to the applications. And I can see what is my interval. I can see there was a calculation. I can see all the historical data for that. And again, it is also sliced by the attributes for that. Now I can go a little bit further. I can ask the Infohub API, okay, cool, I know it's a calculation. We've got another endpoint that we can hit that will tell me, provide me with the actual calculation that was utilized to build up that calculation. So here I've got a calculation. It is a KPI where I'm tracking hour over hour, how am I improving with my hourly production. And it tells me that anything above a 1 indicates I'm improving, obviously, and everything below a 1 is I am now decreasing from the previous hour value. I'm going to ask it to also include me all my fields as well as all my metadata into this packet. And what that is actually going to do, and if you guys know me on webinars, I spell horribly. Let's hit that. Let's evaluate that. And now I'm not just getting the definition of my KPI, it will actually go and give me all the metadata. So where does it live in the enterprise, what site it is, which vendor am I getting this data from, and if we go a little bit down, it will actually give me the expression or the calculation that it's been used to build that out. And look at this, it gives me the dependence. So which other KPIs in my model is dependent of this KPI. So it gives me that full traceability within the model.
So as an application engineer, I have full visibility into the calculation, and I have breadcrumbs into the actual raw data, essentially that's behind that calculation. We won't demo it today, but I could continue to use Infohub's API, and Infohub would actually request the raw data for you from the underlying databases. So you could say, hey, actually, I don't know anything about the historian, but I need 8 hours of raw data out of that historian, and that path will get you there.
And we deliver these information and these pieces of context to not only people, other applications, as well as our AI. So I can deliver the same content to potentially Power BI. So I've got a very simple Power BI report here. Notice that I've got my hierarchy. I can drill into my hourly component, and I can look at my hourly difference and slice that with my Power BI graph. Okay, all of that historical information has been delivered by Infohub back to my applications. From the human perspective, we do have charting and dashboarding ourselves, so we do have the capability to create dashboards. And I've got the same drilling capability with the dashboards. So I can look at this and say, oh, that daily difference, I'm down 6,000 units. Let's have a look. So it tells me, yes, this is the difference between the current day and the previous day. Negative values is obviously bad. I can add a comment, which is great. Now the human can add more context and domain knowledge for the AI to go and look at. But I can also go and look at what is the actual expression. That same expression that applications can now get, the human can get. So I can see here, oh, I'm taking the previous day, I'm minusing it with the current day, and then I can even drill in further. Let's make this a little bit bigger, and I say, okay, there's a little red dot, so quality was not good when we retrieved the data. Let me drill into that. I can say, oh, how did I get to my total units for yesterday? Well, I looked at a period back into the past, and if I drill into that period, it's going to go and look at all the hourly information, and it's going to flag, oh, between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock for that hour, you had a quality issue retrieving that data from your source. And again, I can drill into this, and that will now actually query that historian or data that we're coming from, and there we go. We've got a gap. That gap is when we disconnected from the broker, it recorded a null state, but now that is very important information for us to be able to say, can I trust this data? Or do I need to do an investigation to figure out why do I have bad quality in my architecture pipeline? Okay, so we deliver it to those 3 components. Now, how did I build this? Let's go and look in the UNS. And there was a few challenges that was presented to us, and I'm going to explain those now. So let's look at the UNS. Let's look at site 1 as an example. I'm just going to drill into the filling line. And we look at the filler, and there was process data that tells us the counters. So there's three counters. In feed into the device, out feed out, and then the total defects that was produced off the line. Now, again, same question. I'm going to ask the same question. What does that number mean to me? 208,036? I don't know. What aggregate do I need to apply on that data? I don't know. Right. The only way I can figure that out is I looked at the historical data for that. So in my Timebase, I've been historizing that data, and I can see that is a counter. So it's a lifetime counter telling me the product out of that line. So I'm going to apply a counter aggregate on top of that. Now, we've created a whole bunch of these standard processes within Infohub. So if I open up Infohub, this is now where I modeled and added that domain context that I want to operationalize within the organization. So you'll notice I've created site 1, site 2, and site 3. In site 1, I've got my liquid processing, my filling, my packaging lines. Let's just focus on filling line as an example. I've got my filler there mapped out, and you'll notice that I've got certain metrics that I'm tracking against that piece of equipment. One of those metrics is a throughput, and obviously there's my 3 counters, a defect, an in-feed, and the out-feed. I've created a whole bunch of base templates that tells me on the right-hand side, I've created a whole bunch of base templates. Those base templates tells me, how do I handle a state transition of the machine? How do I handle a counter aggregate? Right? And what is the KPIs that I would like to have available for me? Yes, I would like to know the hourly total. I would like to know how does that change hour over hour? What is my hourly difference? What was the previous hour? What's my shift total? What's my daily total? What's my regression analysis on top of that for the past 30 days? What is the slope of that regression analysis? What is my month to date, week to date? So we literally...
Whatever you want.
Whatever we want.
This
We've created
was just
a
what
base.
was in
We've
your
created
head,
a base.
right?
Right. Yeah. So you guys notice that we're slowly starting to add deterministic calculations to our model that our AI and applications and AI is going to feed off from. Right. Now, I mentioned that there was one challenge that we had to do. I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to quickly... I need to explain this. As I go through this, I use my base templates to then create base equipment templates. So what does a filler require? A filler requires, I need to track the state, I need to track the work order run, I need to track the throughput. I've done the same for a washer, a cap loader, a tank, a mixer, a labeler, a sealer, a packager, and then I use those base equipment templates to create a process template. What does my filling line consist of? Well, my filling line consists of a filler, a washer, and a capper, and my labeler consists of a sealer, a labeler, and a packager. When I built this out, I wanted to do V profiles so that I can identify which piece of equipment is the bottleneck within the process. And then it hit me square in the face when I looked at my filling line and I looked at the work order information and I look at the lot or the item that's getting produced, the pack count for a filler is 0. Now you can tell me, well, that's common, or well, that's logical, right? A filler fills things into a bottle. It's not going to pack anything. But what about a sealer? If I look at the packaging plant and I open up the labeler and I look at a sealer, and again look at the work order information there, and we look at an item, it does have a pack count of 16. So I need to build that domain knowledge into my template. What do you think the AI is going to do when it sees a 0 pack size and it's going to try and figure out how much did you produce for the day? Is it going to multiply the 0 with the counts and told you, sorry, you didn't produce anything? No. We have to give it that deterministic knowledge into the model. So that's exactly what I've done. I've created in my little template, in my sealer object for my template, I said, you know what? A sealer has a throughput by case count as well. And that's when I multiply it with that pack count coming from the information from the work order. All right, cool. So I've created my templates. I did not do site 3. So site 3 is empty. So let's quickly build the filling line for line 3 right here.
Can you flash over to MQTT Explorer? And
yes. All right, so
you're in the main namespace still, I think.
Okay, so if we go to flow, go to site 3, I've got only one metric in site 3. So I didn't do anything else. Okay, so let's build that out quickly.
So first site and second site have been deployed. They've been deployed based on templates. Those templates are sitting on an enterprise server. Flow hosts it, or you host it using a Flow install, I should say. And now Lenny, as an engineer, can grab those templates and instantiate based on his process. The inputs from his specific machines aren't hard-coded. We're using logic based on a unified namespace so that we can find where the appropriate inputs are. And when he instantiates, it's not just going to instantiate, and this is my reminder to tell you to check your backfill. It's not going to just instantiate. It's also going to go back to a set period of time that he decides and ask for the history, pull all of that history out of those databases, run the calcs, and then publish everything, in this case, to the UNS. We could also be publishing to the data lake. We could also be publishing to another database. So we start with one site, second site, and now let's go ahead and deploy the third site.
Cool, so I've just done the filling line. I've deployed it. It's busy backfilling all the information. I'm now building out the packager. So on the labeler side, I've created a packaging line. So I've got the labeler there. The labeler shares the work order information between the sealer and the packager. So I've created the labeler first, and now I'm going to instantiate the sealer using the same template. And what that's going to do is it's going to say, hey, I've got a whole bunch of labelers in your model. Are you sure which one do you want to utilize? So I'm going to instantiate this. And again, I'm just going to pick the correct labeler to associate that work order information across. And then it will instantiate that packager for me. So this is exactly what I talk about. I'm busy with site 3, and I would like to attach site 3's labelers work order information to my asset. So I'm just mapping that information as well. And there we go, and we're instantiating that line. Cool, 2 more processes to do, and I should be done.
So what we've added to the product just recently, because we're also going to instruct the engine to publish all of this data, obviously, to the UNS. Previously in Infohub, for every metric, every measure, every event, you had to bring the data consumer, that is the target, drag it in, and put it as part of the template. We now have the opportunity where we can just say at a folder level, take everything that's inside of this folder, publish it to the UNS, or copy this configuration from this metric and apply it to these metrics. So much faster for turning this into the engine that pushes all of this information into your UNS.
And you've got complete control of what you want to push to where. So notice that I'm pushing to 2 streams. I'm pushing my profile to the UNS. That's that profile that I described earlier. I'm also pushing the same data to a SQL warehouse. And I've got control. Do I want to push all the time scheme related product or information? So that's the information that's been sliced by time. Or do I want to send all my event information? That's all the events that's now sliced by the total product run or the total work order. For now, I'm just going to go and push it all to my production sites, and off we go. So I'm going to copy that. It's going to copy it to all the metrics within that filler object, and it's going to start sending out that information to the UNS. Okay, there we go. All right, now.
Might I suggest, because we're wrapping up, can we go ahead and show on the AI gateway side, by using a simple skill that we created, now what happens for all of our sites, we operate we attach using MCP, our AI gateway, so whatever agent that's MCP compliant, you've heard this a few times this week, you bring, now write a skill. The skill says, create a shift report. I want my shift report to be formatted this way. Here's the structure it is to have every single time. Here's the data that I need to display. This ensures that now Lenny can execute with a simple command of skill report, and we will get the same report back every time. And when the report goes right, Lenny, what do we look at?
Cool. Before we show the report, I just want to highlight 2 things. So if you were in the chat just before this, there was a mention about context window, and Walker said it very good. He said that the context window is actually your friend, because the smaller that you can make it, the more accurate it's going to be. So you can notice that I've loaded a whole bunch of tools. The tools are loaded by AI, that's been provided by AI Gateway, and that's the tools to be able to talk to Infohub to get the historical information across. Then that little yellow block there, that's my skill. Now, the skill is a very dedicated skill that I've created, and that is to have a shift handover report between shift teams. So I've created a shift skill, and that shift skill is literally going to tell the MCP or tell the agent what tools and minimize tool calls to get to the right information, only to be a shift handover expert. Right. Now, let's have a look at that. So I've created some of these reports through the course of ProveIt. So this report was done on the 17th, and I've got another report on the 16th. Let's look at the executive summary of the report. And again, these reports now look identical because the skill will always represent the data in the same format. Okay, so if I look at the 17th and I read the executive summary, it tells me that my OEE came in at 89%. The site target was 85. That looks all good. I completed my work order on schedule. Although I had 6 CIP cycles and 12 minor unplanned downtime events, we'll still be able to create that schedule. And we are halfway through with the following work order, another 1.3 hours left to finish. Do I need to read the rest of this report? No. I'm done. I can go on and do my job because there is nothing for me to worry about. Everything is on track. I'm saving time. Let's look at the report from the day before. Same story. Here's my executive summary. The last 2 hours saw a sharp reliability decline. Okay, that immediately tells me, yes, I need to have a little bit deeper look at what's going on here. And if I scroll down, this is the best part for me, is it says that your counter feed for this work order, so that outfeed counter on the filling line, had a quality issue. It went and looked at what is the quality code for the OPC, and it tells me that there is uncertain values for that counter. That was that gap that I showed you guys within the values. It then also tells me, like, yes, you recorded production, but it's potentially the boundary value that you just carried across. Now I can go and do my investigation. And now I need to spend time on this to fix my quality issues. And that's the power of having deterministic calculations, living in a platform, provided to the AI agent via skill, so the AI agent can give you the recommendations on what you need to do tomorrow or the next day.
Thank you, Lenny. All right, so I don't want Dave to have to do any work at all. He's had a long week. What does all of this cost? This is a, oh, sorry. Just show the MQTT Explorer. I said we were going to publish.
Oh, so there we go. There's my hour over hour. There's my hour difference, the hour for each and every one of those metrics. There's my shift leave metrics, my daily metrics. Everything get published for the line that we've just...
The same as Site 1 and Site 2. Just like that, we instantiated a site, off we go. Now, what does it cost? That's the big question, right? Lenny on the PowerPoint. Total time for Lenny to do that, 80 hours. That's all 3 sites. 4 sites, 5 sites, 6 sites, 90 hours, 100 hours. Once you've got it drilled in, you're good. But for him to build the templates, for him to understand all of the data, remember, we had to learn this factory, 80 hours. Time-based historian, completely free, and a site license on an annual subscription of Infohub, $16,595 per year. We do multi-site discounts, so if you're interested in that, please let me know. And then how do you interact with us? I'm a big fan of QR codes and call to actions. So I'm going to give you lots of different things to choose from just to try to get as many cameras in the air as possible. If you don't want to scan the QR code, just pretend for me, please. It'll make me feel better. You could go ahead and book a pilot. If you're sold and you know you need it, please, let's book a pilot. We did 8 bookings last year at ProveIt from stage, and just so you know, that kind of took care of us for about 4 months. So if you're really interested, you're not making a financial commitment, but let's at least make sure that we have a conversation. You can also schedule a demo where we can build out a use case specifically for you, and you can get the 6 questions. What are the 6 questions? The 6 questions are what you should be asking of the data that you see in your systems to determine whether or not it is information ready. Those 6 questions are downloadable, or there's a nice little form you can do right from there as well. Dave, questions?
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We've got some questions coming up on the Slido. You guys can go ahead and scan another QR code, probably slightly, sadly.
And could I make a request just for our PowerPoint to still be somewhere for the QR code in case? Oh, it is. Thanks, Vincent. Okay.
Perfect. No, I was going to say the Slido might be slightly more popular, but everyone else should also go ahead and scan the Flow QR code. Congratulations to Lenny. I don't know if anyone was in the inductive room on Monday. Lenny had some slightly more traumatic stories on the dumpster fire. I was almost going to say that on the walk-up, Lenny, but I didn't want to go add to that stress level. So absolutely fantastic. I love the foundational work, Jeff. I knew that you guys were going to do some of that foundational work, and it is very important. I know almost all of the clients that I work with still have some of that blocking and tackling to do, and I'd imagine many of the groups here also have some of that foundational work to do before we get to that next level, artificial intelligence. Question that I'm sure all of the life sciences folks here would like to know is, Jeff, Lenny, this was absolutely fantastic on the bottling facility on Enterprise B. I know it's orange juice, but I'm picturing it's beer, Lenny. I don't know if you were also having beer flashbacks for that, so I'm going to say that as yes. What sort of industries are you guys covering on the Timebase and the Infohub side?
Yeah, so it's important to understand that for us, data is data. Systems are systems. Connectivity is connectivity. So the same processes and the same procedures that you've seen us do are going to work across a multitude of industries. That's not really the deciding factor. But to answer your question, where we have really cut our teeth and come up, first and foremost is food and beverage. easily over 300 food and beverage sites that we've been deployed on, that we are constantly calculating on. Mining and aggregates, well over 200 mining and aggregate sites. I'm probably actually cutting it short. Renewables, we have 2 really good renewables partners that treat Infohub and Timebase as just their standard go-to-market. Consumer packaging, goodness, flexible packaging, cardboard packaging, and just, I think, general manufacturing, really.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for that, Jeff. Lenny, there's a really good question that's been upvoted here a bunch of times. You ran that executive summary, and you're like, do you have to go read the rest of it? And someone behind me said yes. I, in fact, was over here shaking my head like, yes, we probably do want to go read the rest of the report.
Yeah.
So having said that, can you run the report twice? I guess they're asking, and maybe we physically can, maybe we don't want to do that. And
No, we want
we want to do that?
We always want to do it.
Okay, can we run the report twice and show that the executive summary portion of that report runs the same both times? And I appreciate the confidence, Jeff. Now, that confidence could be in the product. That confidence could be in the fact that Lenny is the one over here having to run it up on stage live.
The confidence is in the people. Zach and Lenny
Okay.
built the skill collaboratively, and I know the product's solid. While he's doing that, and you can watch on the screens, I'll just hit a few of these if you don't mind.
Please.
How extensive is the site license? Does it cover multiple UNSs? Yeah, we don't care how many places you publish to. We use Microsoft SQL as our backend, so we're doing all of our config storage, all of the metadata storage, all of the user details, all of the KPIs we're storing in Microsoft SQL. That typically is where the bottleneck would be as far as how comprehensive or how wide can I scale a site license. But we've yet for a single site to ever have that be the thing. So we don't put any type of restrictions on users or calculations or inputs or outputs or anything like that. But technically, if there is a restriction, it'll be in that Microsoft SQL backend. How does Timebase stand in comparison to other historians, including Canary and Pi, smiley face emoji with a sweat brow? No sweat here. Look, this is the age of comparison, right? Grab it and find out. I would say go to our website, go to Aviva's website, go to Canary's website, and download all 3. I assume Canary's got a free version you can download and use, right, and try out. I assume Aviva makes it easy to download their historian and try out. Connect to the same data sources and start logging data. If you don't like one of the ones that you downloaded, throw it out, right? And then if you don't like the business model of the 2 remaining, throw it out and see what you have left. I will say this. We built Timebase Historian to serve the site engineer trying to solve a problem. We did not build Timebase Historian because we are trying to be the enterprise historian on record and do all these huge, crazy architectures. That's our scope. You know me, you know my history with Canary. I love the people, I love the technology, and if I'm building out this monster enterprise architecture, I'm going to point you at Canary. But always compare your options. You're going to do it anyway. You're just trying to rage bait me.
I was going to say maybe the sweat brow emoji was for everyone else not on stage, having to go to listen to Jeff's answer.
Is pricing perpetual or subscription? We let you choose. We recognize that some of you have OpEx, some of you have CapEx. I provided you the OpEx budget. If you wanted to buy Infohub and be done with it, $60,000. The other question was, why is it $16,595 and not $16,000 even? Whoever wrote that question, bring me a PO for $16,000. You got it.
Oh, it looks like we just lowered the price of Infohub for everyone who can cut a $16,000 purchase order.
And all of a sudden, 5 people wrote that question. I hope that's the problem I have today. Bryce, thank you. We're happy to do it, and that's why we're here. And use store. Lenny, take the top one.
Do you store event context back into Timebase, not just publishing the defined metrics back to UNS, but also state events, recipes, etc.? No. So Timebase is a time series historian, very good at recording normal TVQ values, timestamp value quality. The event information becomes a little bit more like almost like a a record, right? It's more a record of that. So we store that event information into a SQL database. So it is a little bit different types of data. So we do handle that two scenarios a bit different. So no, the event data gets stored as a transactional record within the SQL database, and then normal TVQ values is getting stored in the Timebase historian.
How are you populating, embedding the metadata into the payload if it is not in the source data? Well, that's where the modeling comes in.
Yeah.
The model is, it's actually, you know, that's a great question, because I get too close to it and I forget where the standard has been and what the assumption is, right? We're all used to taking a tag out of a historian and applying an OPC aggregate and calling that a KPI. And sometimes that is a KPI. A 5-minute running average of a pressure, well, it's a PI, it's not a KPI. But how do we actually embed all the context? Well, we do a whole lot more than that. The model has that input, of course, from where that lives in the historian and what it represents, but then it has all of the engineering knowledge that you get to add as context, description, model attributes. You're not based on just running it off of a assumed calendar. You configure your calendars, your shifts. You decide whether you also want to slice and dice that same aggregation by other transactional records like work order number, operator. You could look at it and even further contextualize it and say, when I was doing this, what was happening over here? And if what was happening over here was outside of this threshold, then add some of that information over here. It's all C#. It's all you building out any expressions that you would like. It's low code, right? The idea is not to be code heavy here. But when you're going to write code, and let's not pretend you're not going to write code. This is manufacturing. Anyone that stands in my place and says it's a no-code solution, I'm sorry, no, it is not. You will write code. But now, where is your code living? One place, and it's reusable, right? That's the goal.
No, I appreciate it. Jeff, Lenny, thank you guys so much. We've run out of time for questions. What booth? Give us a booth number downstairs.
I don't know the number. If you haven't seen our booth downstairs, I don't know how else to point you to it. It's the one with the 9-foot LED wall and a Nintendo sitting there with Contra on it today.
Okay.
Contra.
I was going to say high expectations for all future video walls, as I've told the entire Flow team.
Be very prepared for us to disappoint you on the next booth.
Perfect.
That
do you
is
guys
not
still have a workshop if people are looking? Okay, so workshops are done. If you haven't signed the QR code, go check out these guys. Lenny is running some more reports.
Yeah, so
come
so
ask
whoever
Lenny
asked
some
the
more
question,
difficult
just come to the desk. It's still busy churning out. Let me just clarify one thing that I said maybe. So the idea of AI is to help us to be better at our jobs, right? Yes, you're going to go through an iterative process to make sure your skill is spot on. You're going to go through an iterative process to make sure the calculations is delivering the right value at the right time, every time. So, yes, you are going to go through the values to make sure they're right, okay? If you trust them and you've got this process in place, then there should not be a reason why that cannot be a valuable arsenal in your pocket to make sure that your shift handover meetings is better. That's what we're striving for, right? And that's the whole idea. Okay.
A lot of times, I think it just ultimately comes down to trust. You'll never trust a relationship that's brand new. But once that relationship has been established and it has proven itself, I mean, come on. I have officially now sent an email that I didn't read. Anybody else? All right. Nobody else? Nobody else has sent an email they didn't read? Nobody else has hit publish on a LinkedIn post that maybe they actually didn't read the entire text and make sure? Well, okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I mean, come on, come on.
You shamed them into it, Jeff. Awesome, I appreciate it.
Thank
We are
you,
being
everybody.
told that time is up. Jeff, Lenny, thank you guys so much.